The circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a circuit of twists and turns. It is a roller coaster of venue, and it is the host of round number 6 of the IMB World Series Championship Season 4 for the Europeans here. And it is going to be an absolute cracker, I'm sure. It's been an up and down season for a lot of people over the last 10 races. We are past the halfway mark in the season, and I'm looking forward for each and every single race we have until we round off the season at round 10 in Bathurst. It is myself, Zach Sweeney, leading the way in the commentary booth with David Christie alongside me. Unfortunately, we haven't got Ewan O'Leary alongside us, which means we've got no one to take the mick out of, but it's fine. I've got David Christie alongside me, and well, David, really looking forward to what we have here in Canada.
Oh, I don't know about that. You were fairly taking the mick just off air there, Zach. So let's keep that going. Yeah, what a brilliant circuit this is here in Canada. It's a really fast, biting circuit. The drivers absolutely love this. However, I think there's going to be a lot of scores to settle, Zach, after last week out at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, well, Watkins Glen was an event and a half for both the Europeans and for the Americans as well. We're going to take a look at how they rack up in terms of the championship standings in just a moment. Here are the pros. Albin Kjellberg, after a very ropey start, taking his drop week in round 1, has since been on a resurgence. He currently leads the way. Of course, his total points are going to be less than Neil Butler's, as you can see there, at 175 compared to 182. That doesn't quite factor in the drop rounds, but Neil Butler there in second place. Stuart Reynolds just in behind in P3. His last 3 rounds have all been consecutive drop rounds. It's just been decline after decline for him after getting such a good start. Elliot Hellier there in P4 with Chris Chatterton rounding off the top 5. Elliot Hellier, poor guy, of course, missed the second round and again, last time out at Watkins Glen took a very poor round, so he's got to be on his top form throughout the rest of the season. Kenny Herman P6, Callum Beeman in P7, Yamantas just in behind with Andy Miller and Louis Gardner rounding off the top 10. Then we'll take a look at the Pro-Ams, and it is really heating up between Lucas Romano and John Williams, who are really just sailing away in terms of their rivalry, really impressing the last 2 weeks at Watkins Glen and Interlagos alike. The pair of them have put on a fantastic display of battling, especially at Interlagos. It is Lucas Romano that currently leads the way, but John Williams, he didn't quite manage to get 4 wins in a row, but just before that, 3 wins, a double whammy at Interlagos, then a single win at Watkins Glen. Liam Mahern just in behind there in P3 after a pretty decent round compared to the likes of John Williams and Lucas Romano at Watkins Glen is able to allow him to sort of close the gap just a little bit. Felix Pial just in behind. Michael Patterman rounds off the top 5. Stuart Francois Pedro, Chris Thacker, Jeremy DeWover and Dean Timms, our reigning AM champion, rounds off the top 10. Our AM standings as well prove still to be quite close, with Lewis Boubier only just being able to recently string together a couple of race 2s. Now is really in the mix for a championship fight. Connor Botting, though, still consistent and still leading the way ahead of Dirk Bouts. Lou Boubier, as I say, there in P3. Yamo Sassamon in P5, Tony Norgran in just rounding off the top 5 there, and there is James Slates, Carl Pearce, Anthony Bruce-Letts, Timo McEwen and Johan Reigns, the top 10. And well, across all 3 categories, David, the championship is certainly one to look forward to.
Isn't it just? It's still way too close to call. I mean, we're really into the business end now of the championship, and I think that realistically we have to start thinking that every single week now counts. It has kind of been that way for the most part for the season, but now, especially up at the top, it's so cutthroat. I honestly think that one misadventure on one round is going to decide the entire title.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, with how fine the margins are, we even, we're talking about how a couple of our drivers already, those that are in amongst some of the championship fights, like Alvin Kjellberg, Neil Butler, Stuart Reynolds, all of them have pretty much taken their sole drop round, the one they can't afford to repeat. I mean, Neil Butler, his drop round is 74 points of a maximum 100, which isn't bad. So I would say of everyone, he's the one best poised to sort of be able to afford a bad week. But the rest of them, they have got nothing that they can afford to lose. And well, now we're sort of well into the mix of this season as well. They really have got to deliver, and that's only in the pros. The pro-ams as well, Lucas Romano, John Williams, both of them have got not the best drop weeks in the world. Same too with the AMs, with how Lewis Boubier hasn't been able really to get a race 2 together. Dirk Bouts has been pretty decent, but also Connor Botting, he needs to deliver all the way through. This is how they rack up, though. We will go through the grid order just before we get ready for race number 1. It is Neil Butler who takes pole position. Albin Kjellberg will join him on the front row of the grid, with Stuart Reynolds in P3. The top 3 in the championship, 1, 2 and 3 on the grid. Andy Miller P4, Callum Beeman rounds off the top 5, and he'll be joined by Chris Chatterton on the third row. Kieran Smart, Thomas Dandridge, P7 and 8, Karen Herman and Mantas round off the top 10. Thomas Reiter just in behind, with Harry Wills rounding off the 6th row, and the pro. Stuart Viners, John Williams front row for pro-ams, with Lucas Romano just in behind them. Edward Packer rounds off the 2nd row of the grid, with Chris Thacker in the top 5. Liam Mahern P6, Michael Patterman and Felix Pial round off the 4th row of the grid, with Jeremy DeWover and Juho Hooten, a good result for him there in 10th. Ashraf El Haddad, the Dutchman, will be joined by Alex Bombard there in P12, with Francois Pedro and Diade Flaming rounding off the pro-ams. Lewis Boubier, a good result for him in his bid to secure yet another race 1 victory. Pole position ahead of the Finner, Tony Norgran on the front row. Connor Botting, James Slates join each other 3 and 4, with Gus Franken top 5. Jasper Chuck just in behind, with Dirk Bouts P7, Mark Bailey, Glenn Humberstone, Kurt Van Hohenacker rounds off the top 10. The Belgian of Johan Reigns and Jamo Sastamoinen round off the grid. We are about to get underway for the pro start. Neil Butler there on pole position, the 41 Porsche, joined by the number 13 BMW of Albin Kjellberg. We are waiting to get underway for round number 6 here for the IMB World Series League GT3 EU. A good start there from Neil Butler. Side by side, Stuart Reynolds trying to get down the inside of Andy Miller, who's catapulted himself around the outside of turn 1, quickly becomes the inside of turn 2, and throughout the grid it is 2 by 2, multiple rows deep, because that is the nature here for the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, a relatively clean start amongst the pros. We will cut away to the pro-ams, who are now about to get underway. Stuart Viners and John Williams, the front row of the grid. They are go as they hurdle away a short run down and towards the first braking zone of T1. A pretty dominant start for our pole positions, though. 3 wide. Chris Thacker goes off. No, it's not. It's Liam Ahern going off. Unfortunately for him, the man 3rd place in the championship. He rejoins the circuit right there in P14 towards the back of the grid. That is a chaotic start for him. Felix Pial trying to make up a couple of places in towards what is going to be T4 and 5, and we got back to the AMs. A chaotic start amongst the pro-AMs. Lewis Boubier, Tony Norgran, the front row. Lewis Boubier needs to get away well in that Audi, and again he's punched it quite late and he's caught them napping. Connor Botting looking to the inside of Tony Norgran, not quite close enough. There goes the BMW of James States, looking to the outside, to the inside of T2, and a big crash. We're getting word of pro-am.
Oh yeah, Michael Patterman was caught up in that. Liam Ahern, Lucas Romano, all absolutely mauled in that early incident. We've got more chaos. We've got Connor Botting facing the wrong way for the AMs there. So much drama already at an early stage here, Zach, and I'm going to be really busy queuing up all these replays tonight.
Yeah, well, you've got your work cut out for you. Connor Botting, unfortunately for him, leading the way in the championship and did get a pretty good result in qualifying. Now having to sort of dwindle amongst the sort of those in P16. This is what happened to Michael Passman. We're going to see what happens to the Porsche in towards the second chicane. Down the inside, and seems to get it done, but a small tap. They both pirouette around, catch out a couple of cars. Is that Juho Huhtanen, I'm thinking that Mercedes, having to take avoiding action. This is what happened to... Oh, no, it's not what happened to Connor Botting. We're now going to take a look as to what happened. Felix Payal there in the Porsche, just getting caught up in it. And that is such a shame because there really is nowhere for him to go.
There absolutely isn't. I mean, you know, you're at such tight margins here at Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. There's very little you can do. If a car goes off in front of you, the track is so narrow, Zach, you've got nowhere to go. So it's you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place, unfortunately.
Yeah, very true indeed. It's just sort of, you have to guess, you have to commit. Like we saw a number of times at Watkins Glen, you just have to hope that things go right for you. But 9 times out of 10 they usually don't if there's a crash like that. This is now the back to the AMS. Glenn Humberstone trying to make up some progress amongst the pack, but it is very close. I will say though, around this Circuit of Gilles Villeneuve, there aren't many real overtaken opportunities. You really have to pick your moments quite right. Of course you have got the long back casino straight towards that chicane, but even that isn't much of an overtaken space. You really have to be quite particular and time your moves well.
It tends to be a little bit of a battle of the late breakers from what we find on here. The thing is we've got a car going very, very slowly on the back straight there. It just sort of kind of ebbs and flows. You have to really, really think quite carefully about where you're going to be making your overtaking opportunity, because as you said, there's very little option for it to actually work here. And whereas Watkins Glen, I think, was a madcap and a chaotic race, I think tonight is going to be more about other cars making mistakes here, Zach.
It is. You just have to be consistent down the inside for Kurt Van Hohenacker. That is the battle of the last of the late breakers, being able to make that one stick, though compromise his run coming out, and now he might be under attack from the number 21 Porsche down the back straight. He is going to defend to the right hand side, and that is going to help him, but you can see that Porsche tucking back in. There is space to the right hand side if he's interested. Does he want to go for it? Yes, he does, and he is going to have a bit of a look. Can he be letting off on the brakes? Not quite. And then to the outside comes Johan Reigns in that Audi, having a bit of a look, but again, to the outside of that chicane is really a death race. A little bit further up, the fight for the top 5 between Gus Franken and Jasper Charks down towards T1. Yet again, BMW supremacy seems to be the case, and oh my word, off he goes. That is Jasper Charks taking a very interesting line through T1, though he's sort of managed to make it stick.
I think that was a little bit of pull going on there from Gus Franken, and there you go, there's the just desserts. That is predictable. I think that Franken actually caught the tail end of that car and hit him like a pool ball into the corner pocket, and I don't actually think that was the same car that caught him up. I think that was actually a different car. I think that might have been Jerome Reigns that got caught up in that there, but either way, that is absolutely horrendous crash.
Yeah, once again, more carnage, more chaos, but hey, it's still this series, and well, that is always what we come to expect. Just off the exit there, oh, yeah, not the most fun of turn of events, to be honest, especially for Johan Reigns, because oh my word, again, they're parked in such a place where both of their the front half of their car is onto the circuit, which leaves just a narrow pocket of maneuverability space for you to actually find a way through, and there wasn't much space at all. Back to the live action though amongst some of the Pro-Ams. This is Ashraf El Haddad versus Alex Bomberg and Didier Vlaming, the fight for the top 5. The Dutchman making some pretty good progress. He started sort of towards the tail end of the top 10, even I think outside of the top 10 for the Dutchman, and he's really now starting to make the most of some of that early race chaos.
I tell you what, Ewan, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Zach. That is, I don't know if you take offence at that or how we work that one out, but anyway, what I was trying to say is that I think it's safe to say the Yams won't be complaining about a lack of coverage this week, because certainly for the first 5 minutes it's all been about them. You've seen the pros able to just have a little bit of patience and maybe waiting on for it, and we've not seen that same sort of patience down in the AMS at all. It's just not worked out their way at all so far. Thankfully, looks like it's calming down with just 19 minutes left to go in this first race of the evening. It's still Neil Butler from Albin Kjellberg and Andy Miller up in the pros just now, but again, I wonder if that is maybe just a sort of a highlight of, you know, the different classes that you've got. Maybe the pros are understanding that you kind of have to just be a little bit more patient in this race.
Yeah, of course, the pros are going to be those with slightly higher I rating, potentially more experience. Of course, I rating does not tell the full story. I should know, I've got 1.5k. I am definitely good enough for the World Championship. No, definitely not. This is Stuart Reynolds actually onto the back of Andy Miller, whose car is actually facing the right way this week, which is fantastic to see after what happened at Watkins Glen for the poor guy.
Savage.
Yeah, no, poor guy. I mean, it was hardly his fault, to be fair. But Stuart Reynolds having a look in towards the third chicane. It is a quite high-speed chicane. He's going to have a look to the outside, though. The Ferrari parks it pretty nicely to the middle of the circuit and is able to just sort of hold at bay. There is the cutback though from Stuart Reynolds. He might actually have a bit of a look. We have to cut away though because Mark Oliver is on the back of Knockout down the Casino Straight. This is the fight side by side in towards the hairpin right at the tail end of the circuit. Andy Miller parked on the inside though, goes in a bit deep. Stuart Reynolds trying to get the drive out of the corner, and as soon as they start battling, this is what we're talking about amongst the AMs and the Pro-Ams versus the pros. They start to do this a little bit too early, and look at how much time you lose as soon as you start a fight. Though Stuart Reynolds has used his experience. He's now using that Mercedes and the slipstream down the back straight. Is he just going to tap the rear end of that Ferrari? Yes, he is. He's aware of the fact that you lose so much time, and they do not want to lose touch of Albon Kjellberg because already Neil Butler's 2 seconds in front.
And that's really smart driving from the pair of them to be able to just think better of it, not fight with each other there. Not so sure that was what Juho Huhtinen was trying to do there, because that was on the exit of a corner. It's not really going to work the same way, but Huhtinen obviously quite wants to get past Francois Perdreau very, very quickly indeed. He might get the opportunity here on this straight.
We'll have to wait and see. Juho Huhtinen needs to string a good result together. Unfortunately for him, he's had some good pace, just not the luck on his side for the best part of this season. Jürgen Nocker trying still to retain his position. A bit of damage to the front of that BMW actually. Back to this fight, Ashraf El Haddad versus Thacker in towards T1 and T2. The Porsche now to the outside. That was a brilliant move actually from the 92, the Dutchman, who is now up yet another place. That was on Alex Bomberg. I apologise, the Audi just in behind him now. Ashraf El Haddad using his experience. Connor Botting, another bit of misfortune for him. That is such a shame for a driver that, since taking the lead of the championship, said he's going to try and practice more, put the work in and be more consistent, and since he's not really had that much in terms of a good result.
It's been a pretty much a disastrous race for Connor Botting, and that Audi, that's the most underwhelming crash I think you're going to see tonight. And of course by this point the frustration sets in and he just wants to get that car into the pits and get that car into the bin as well. Championship defining moment I think here for Connor Botting.
Yeah, you were talking about how there's such fine margins. That's Andy Miller, I think, having a bit of a slowdown penalty going through the final chicane, having a bit of a cut, and it's so easy to pick up because that runoff area is quite extensive and it's so easy to overshoot. That promotes Stuart Reynolds and Chris Chatterton up a place. Stuart Reynolds now into P3, Chris Chatterton up into P4. John Williams on the back of Stuart Vinez. He needs to get a good result, especially with Lucas Romano in the pit lane. This could be massive for John Williams' championship, though in a situation like this, does he go for first, or does he just be content with second, considering Romano's situation?
Well, the calm, mature, professional sim racer in me says you just take it nice and easy, but the boy racer says, no mate, I'm having that position. I think John Williams will be fairly settled to take second place. He is just, you know, as you say, 4/10 of a second behind. He'll want to keep Stuart Winers in his sights, but he'll know how much pace he has in that car. He doesn't need to force it and do anything silly. It only loses him a couple of points, or it's only likely potentially to gain a couple more points than he has right now. And given we're so close to the end of the championship, I'd be tempted to just hold on to those points.
I mean, he already has 4 wins this season of a total, what has been 10 races. So he's not doing too bad in terms of the win percentage at all. He doesn't really need to add another one to his belt, of course. And actually, you are going to want to. This is Gus Franken with a very stricken BMW. Yet another bit of an incident. Coming out of the pit lane with a damaged BMW. Maybe clearing the meatball flag, but not taking the optional repairs. And that probably shows as to why it's a good idea to take those optional repairs.
Yeah, I think it's falsely flagged up that he's had a crash here. I think he's already done the maximum amount of damage to that car there. It certainly is it's looking like it's ready for the scrap heap. However, back to the pro battle here, Zach, and there's a cracking little fight now. 5 cars here. This is the battle for 4th position. Same with Pro-Ams and with AMS as well. Pro-Ams, you've got a 3-way fight for 5th place, but it's all really kicking off all through the field.
Yeah, well, that is what we've come to expect. Season 4 of the IMB World Series GT3 EU has been so phenomenal, so fantastic. We saw it last season, but we didn't quite have the championship at stake for the majority of last season. Now we do. Now we've got positions to be fought over. Now we've got points at stake. Now we've got everything that has just risen up. The tension's rising. And it is awesome to see how week in, week out, doesn't matter what track we go to, we have action. James Slade's getting it all sorts of wrong going into that final chicane, jumping over the sausage curb. That is really not good at all. Probably going to pick himself up a slowdown penalty, I'm sure, for that. But in his fight for 2nd place, even worse, as we now see Thomas Reiter. Kenny Harriman moving a little bit under braking to cover off the inside. The fight for 10th amongst the pros. And I don't think Thomas Reiter is exactly going to be singing praises about that one.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of just desserts after that one. That looked a little bit sketchy from the two of them, I think, to be fair. With Hermans and Chariton, I think Chariton was just trying to... with Hermans and Reiter. I think Hermans possibly just trying to get out of the way. Maybe thought that car was coming in a little bit too hot. So I don't think it was a move to block. I think it was a move to avoid from Hermans. But we'll certainly find out, because it looks like Thomas Reiter side by side coming into turn 1 here. A little bit of nudge, a little bit of contact here. This is getting spicy.
Yeah, they want this 10th place for sure. Thomas Reiter trying to get the shortest run possible through turn 2. And then get the drive off on this run towards turns 3 and 4. Kenny Herman doing a great job as to hang on. This is the fight still for the lead amongst the Pro-Ams between Stuart Viners and John Williams. John Williams really has been unrelenting with that pressure, putting the 61 BMW under a world of pressure. And unfortunately, that pressure is going to be relented, I think. It is not the right term, but for lack of a better term, John Williams making a bit of a mistake. Going to take a look as to how this happened, but I mean, it's more of a reason now for him to just settle down, I think.
I don't know if the challenge relented or that his tyres relented after that one, because that is not what you want to have. And yeah, listen, that'll be a wake-up call. That's at that point you're just like, right, okay, I've got 10 minutes to go, let's just bring that car home.
Exactly. I mean, it was all good fighting for the lead and this, that, and the other, but you've made that small mistake, and luckily you got away with it. You didn't hurl yourself into the barrier. You didn't make contact. You didn't do anything like that. You got away with it. Just breathe, calm down. You're not going to close that gap with the time that you've got left. You're not going to get into the lead. You've got point on the board. You've got good points relative to your rival, and that is what matters. This is Thomas Reiter once again launching that attack. Kenny Harriman really not eager to give it up at all, squirming under brakes. The BMW stays ahead for now. This is a cracking fight. Very apologies, argy-bargy between the pair of them, but Thomas Reiter really eager to get through. Kenny Harriman even more stubborn to keep him at bay.
This is going to end in tears, you just know it, don't you? There we go, Thomas Reiter, a little bit of contact onto the back of Hermans there. That will relieve that pressure for just now, but it will definitely build back up again in the next couple of laps. That was a little bit wild there, and given that they're fighting over 10th position, you're a little bit like, why? But hey ho.
Hey, it's a fight. To be fair, I mean, it would be much better if it was sort of a fight for the lead or this or whatever. But yeah, I mean, they're giving us a show. They clearly want that top 10. And yeah, this is a replay as to what happened with John Williams, the incident that sent him round a couple of laps ago. If you were wondering, if you only just joined us, do certainly leave a like on the stream and let us know that you're enjoying it. Let us know your predictions for the rest of the season, this, that, and the other. This is Neil Butler, leader of the pros at the moment, just getting it a little bit wrong going into the hairpin. He's got Albin Kjærberg now just over a second clear of him. Albin Kjærberg has sort of upped the ante a little bit, put a bit more pace in, and has closed that gap. But I think maybe Neil Butler sort of just come to his senses a bit, recollected himself, and then going to go again. But this is a fight that we've got between Numantes and Harry Wills and Chris Chatterton also in the mix. This could definitely get spicy for 7th place.
It could, but I'm getting to the point this season now where we need to start celebrating the fact that Harry Wills hasn't put it into the wall yet. That's the level of season that Harry Wills has had. He's so blooming fast, and we've seen this week in, week out in all the different versions in EU and US, and he just has no luck whatsoever. He cannot get that pace to show round, and Thomas Reiter is dead from the looks of it.
I wonder if this is with contact with Kenny Harriman. We'll take a look, I'm sure. But, well, no, he seems to be quite far back, and that already looks a little bit quite crumpled on that rear end of the Porsche. I'm not sure if that's just my eyesight going bad. I hope Specsavers still be 3-4 minutes. And no, he's just binned it himself. He's just completely straight-lined it, whether that's on purpose or hardware issue or whatever. Yeah, that is... I'm not sure. Maybe this was the cause of... No, this was just his fight a couple of laps ago. Yeah, he's just decided to put that on the wall himself.
We'll go on board with him and see what happens here, but maybe he's just decided that enough's enough.
Probably. I mean...
Yeah, that looks really dodgy.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately we don't have cautions or safety cars or anything like that, so it's not actually gonna, as long as there's no harm to anyone, he's not, gonna cause anything drastic in this race at all. But yeah, just interesting because obviously he's fighting so hard over 10th place. He might have just decided to park it a little bit. Harry Wills though, back to the live action, still on the back of Juventus. And doing a pretty good job. He was very quick last season, took a couple of wins. Unfortunately, this season, for Season 4, he's not quite been up there. Sticking with the Mercedes as he was last season, now fighting over 6th place. But yeah, Harry Wills driving quite well here for round 6. You might say it's going a little bit too well.
Yeah, we've jinxed it now, haven't we? That's totally what's going to happen. Yeah, exactly. Listen, it'll happen one way or the other, as we've got everything going on down here at Pro-Am right now. I was also seeing a little bit of action down at the Am. So, yeah, look, Harry Wills, though, the thing is that the pace that he's got, Zach, is absolutely sensational. He is so blooming fast behind the wheel of that car. The problem is the consistency and the finishing pace of that car is just not there in any way whatsoever. One race, he'll win by a country mile. The next, he'll be in the wall in lap 2. It's like, you never know what sort of Harry Wills you're going to get.
I also hope I still have a job after this one, after slating Harry Wills for the last 2 minutes. It's tough love, I'm sure, is the case. We're definitely not just completely slaying him. But I mean, it's fair. It's constructive criticism. We've given a compliment. We've said he's quite quick, which he is. And as I said, he took a couple of wins, particularly Monza last season. He looked so quick and he showed that, and he was consistent. He just needs to find his day, find his rhythm. And this is now looking to the outside of Chris Chatterton, who comes barreling down his inside into the hairpin. Bit of a front right to left door of the BMW. They are going to emerge side by side, still pretty even in terms of their run. Though, is this going to allow Juventus to sort of stretch his advantage? So that BMW does look to have the slight measure down the straight and the inside line, of course, unless Harry Wills can do something special. We need particularly late on the brakes. But is he just going to settle for it? No, he's going to try for it and be forced to concede, because the outside of this last chicane, you are just asking for trouble.
You really are, and this is Stuart Reynolds on the front of Andy Miller here. So Mercedes versus Ferrari power right now. This is almost a 3-car fight for the third place, but Neil Butler also getting caught hand over fist by Albin Kjellberg. So that is getting quite interesting there. This is the battle for second and third place in the AMS as well. This has kind of exploded in the last couple of minutes. Tony Nordgren and James Slate's right now. So 5 minutes left to go here, Zach, and you wouldn't put any sort of any money on who's actually going to take any positions here, because it's still too close.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, between Neil Butler and Albin Kjellberg, Neil Butler has seemed so good, but Kjellberg, again, just has pulled something out of the bag. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Stuart Reynolds has lost a little bit of pace over the last couple of laps, falling back into the hands of Andy Miller, and Kieran Smart as well is actually quite close to the rear end of him. This is now Alex Bomberg, who's got Ashraf El Haddad quite a long way back, actually. He was in P5 at some point. Yeah, no, unfortunately he's had to relinquish that position. So I think it's just been an up and down, topsy-turvy race for a number of people, really, because yes, at some points they've shown really good pace, made a mistake, come into contact, whatever. But yeah, really starting to show that this semi-permanent circuit is quite difficult to negotiate.
It's a very, very challenging ask for a lot of these drivers. However, Lewis Boubier is doing a rather nice job up there. I believe that is what, 15 seconds that he's got over Nordgren and Slates right now. So yeah, he'll be very, very happy in the leads of the AM category. But Harry Wills still desperately trying to catch on to the back of I believe that's Hermans. So Hermans has got a slow down penalty or has hit the wall or something, but Hermans, no pace in that car whatsoever.
Yeah, no, really not. Since he's lost Thomas Reiter, he's sort of fallen off the cliff, and that is a shame. That is Callum Beeman, not just in front of him on track. This is the fight between Bailey and Dirk Bout. Dirk Bout, of course, trying to minimise the damage versus his championship rival of Lewis Bube. The pair of them, though, are going to be gaining compared to the championship leader of Chloe Botting back there in P10, and a good run off the final chicane for Liam Ahern has allowed him to pull alongside Felix Pial for the fringes of the top 10. Is the BMW committed enough on the brakes? No, he's not quite, but still he's got to try and get a move on soon, because Michael Patterman breathing down his neck, same too with Jeremy De Boyver just in behind. When you're in that position, you are forced to play your hand.
Well, you don't really have any other options that you can play at that point. That's the difficulty with it, because you're using all of your energy, all of your ability to try and catch up and make sure that that car behind you stays behind, and that leaves you very, very vulnerable to these attacking manoeuvres. We've seen this with the likes of James Slates right now on the back of Tony Norgrans. We've got 3 minutes left to go in this first race of the evening here, Zach. This has been an absolute classic, and we've not seen anywhere near the same level of chaos or carnage that we did last time at Watkins Glen. Still time for race 2 though.
Yeah, it's still time for race 2. I mean, yeah, don't get too excited just yet, touch wood, and hope that it continues to be good action as opposed to just chaotic action. I mean, it's always a laugh when it is cars on their roof and all that, but do need to just take a step back and enjoy some good racing, which is exactly what we're seeing now. High stakes racing as well, with some big names sort of knocked out of contention, and yeah, really running their way through all of this race. And it is towards the tail end of race 1, as we say, do not go anywhere. We double the distance, reverse the top 10, and go again for race 2, and a mandatory pit stop as well in the mix. Michael Patterman now putting some pressure onto the back of Felix Bell, and now Francois Peugeot has actually been able to get himself up in the P9, and this is Jeremy De Boyver there in P13 trying to look alongside the fellow BMW of Liam Ahern, able to get himself ahead fairly convincingly. So Liam Ahern really not had a good lap. This is something that happened to James Slates, fighting the Porsche just in front of him there through the left-hand kink and onto the brakes. You brake pretty much as soon as you're straight in these GTs, and just completely straight on. That is probably the latest apex I think I've ever seen.
It's almost like he didn't even try for the corner there, did he? It's, oh well, there you go. Right, so Slates has now got up into P2 because Norgran got a slowdown penalty coming through the final chicane. And then James Slates immediately celebrates by going straight on at turn 1. I've got no idea how they're like going to finish this final part of the race here.
Yeah, no, absolutely no clue, which is a good thing, to be fair, I think is the term, because yeah, it's awesome when you go into the final couple laps. Now on to what is the final lap of this race. I think Neil Butler has taken the white flag this time around, and yeah, it's great when we don't know. Though Albin Kjellberg, his time is running out on that fight for the race lead. Half a second back, 0.5 of a second back. Can he spring a manoeuvre?
No. I'm just going to burst that bubble straight away. I think Butler has definitely got enough to hold on to that right now. Kjellberg is doing a grand job, but it's that whole thing we talked about earlier on. You know, why would you want to push it when you don't actually have to? Oh my good lord, that sounds like a car has went straight into the wall, and that is Dirk Bouts there. What the heck has happened to Dirk Bouts here?
Oof, I hope we're going to be able to take another look. This is exactly what it is. We have to keep our eye on, of course, on Neil Butler and Albin Kjellberg as they approach the checkered flag, and we'll have a little bit of a look at what happened. And it just looped around. That is unfortunate. A number of mistakes happened similar to that at Watkins Glen with sort of the weight shift of the car, bringing it around, and then tapped around again and pirouetting himself around goes the Belgian, which is a shame. But nonetheless, this is Neil Butler then to come across the line. He has dominated here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for race 1 of round number 6. Weaves himself across the line, a very worthy victor, ahead just of his championship rival of Albin Kjellberg. 1 and 2 for the pair, and Stuart Reynolds a number of moments later will come across the line in P2. 1, 2 and 3 in the championship, 1, 2 and 3 on track in a slightly different order to how they are on the standings. Harry Wills and Chris Jadison fighting to the line, of course, for the fight for what is now going to be 7th place. This is Stuart Vinez now into the final chicane for that BMW, under a bit of pressure from John Williams, it must be said, but he managed to stay calm, stay composed, and thrive under the pressure. He now comes across the line for what it was a front row to checkered flag victory. A brilliant display from Stuart Varnez. Fight between Ashraf El Haddad and Alex Bomberg all the way to the line. That unfortunately is going to come to a bit of an anticlimactic end, and probably is going to be the same case with this fight for the top 10 as well. Just nothing you can really do on that run to the line. This is Lewis Boubier though. Once again, a race 1 victory for him. He ticks it off across the line in just a couple of moments time. The Audi is in prime form as he comes across the line to try and spark still his championship campaign. Tony Norgran there in P2. James States giving him a fight all the way to the end, but again, just falling just a little bit short, unfortunately. But the Finn actually not getting the best of runs is not quite going to be poor enough to give James States the look that he needs on that run to the line. So it is going to be second and third as they cross. But wow, what a race that was, and what a number of victories that was for Neil Butler, Stuart Varnez and Lewis Boubier.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff there. And, you know, here's hoping we have exactly the same in race 2. We double the length, we double the time, and obviously throw in a mandatory pit stop. So let's have a quick look at the finishing results then. Zach, starting with the pros.
Well, it was Neil Butler just ahead of Alban Kjærberg, with Stuart Reynolds rounding off the podium. Andy Miller and Kieran Smart round off your top 5 with Yumentes in P6. Harry Wills, Chris Chatterton and Callum Beeman gave themselves a really good fight in that fight for 7th. With Kenny Harriman rounding off the top 10 ahead of Thomas Dandridge and Thomas Reiter, 2 of which did not quite get to the checkered flag in the end. And yeah, well, that was a really good race amongst some of the pros. Take a look now at the Pro-Ams as how they racked up. Again, a fantastic display. Stuart Varnez took the victory 2 seconds clear of John Williams, who might now lead the championship. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll have to do some quick maths. He definitely is making some good strides forward. Edward Packer in P3 rounds off the podium. Chris Thacker, Alex Bomberg 4 and 5. Ashraf El Haddad in P6. Dave Laming, Houghton and Francois Pedro and Michael Patterman round off your top 10. William Ahern in P11. Felix Bell just in behind there, P12. Jeremy De Boiver P13 and Lucas Romano, the lone DNF, I think, there in P14. Now the AMS. Lewis Boubier, yes, another of race 1 victory. Can he convert that and keep that momentum up for race 2? We will find out. Tony Norgran, James States, your podium with Mark Bailey and Craig Schill, P4 and 5. Kurt van Hoenacker, the Belgian, with a pretty good display. He's joined by his fellow Belgian. They're just in behind in P7. Dirk Bouts, Jarmo Sassamon in P8 with Jasper Charks and Corner Botting. A poor race for our championship leader. Rounds off the top 10. Johan Reigns in P11. Gus Frank in P12. Navarro de Boiva, Jurgen Nocker, Mark Oliver and Glenn Humberstone. Those that didn't quite make it to the checkered flag, unfortunately for them. But yeah, David, great way to kick off the evening.
Wasn't it just? My goodness me, that had everything that we wanted. And I say that quite a lot, right? And usually it's because there's been 15,000 cars piling into each other. But this was just a really good race. It was really, for the most part, really clean, really fair. And I think it all goes back to what you were saying right at the beginning there, Zach. This circuit here in Canada, it just doesn't allow for that much in terms of overtaking, so you have to be careful, you have to think your moves out properly. And I think for the most part a lot of the drivers have done well.
Yeah, for sure. To conquer this circuit is a task in of itself. It's not quite to the extent of like Spa or the Sarthe or the Nordschleife or whatever, but no, it's a difficult circuit. It's one that is fast and flowing, and you don't have much margin for error at all. You have to play the game. You have to think smart. You have to think long game, even in a 25-minute sprint race like it is for race 1, even more so in race 2, 50 minutes long. But it doesn't matter how quick you are, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you tank it into the barrier, you are not going to be scoring many points at all. And for a number of people, it was just a case of keep your nose clean and see what happens.
Well, that's just it. And again, it sounds so cliched, doesn't it? Oh, you know, you've just got to keep it from the barriers. But we've seen tonight how difficult that can actually be. So again, it's just a case of just, you know, being patient, holding your own and seeing what you can do with things. But yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I think that we're going to see a much more prolonged race here in the second one, not just because it's going to be double distance, but I think we're going to see a lot more flashpoints because they were fairly reserved there. But I think now they know that if they're going to make up positions, Zach, they need to get it done sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, for sure, and it is going to be sort of a task that's exaggerated over the course of race 2, as you say. Well, we don't quite have anyone willing to jump into the commentary booth for a quick interview, so what we're going to do not go anywhere. We're just going to throw to a quick break before we go ahead for race 2. As we say, double the distance, reverse the top 10, and we go again, throw in a pit stop for good measure, and it is just race 1 all over again in terms of the action, the craziness, and the championship stakes. Do not go anywhere. It's me, myself, Zach Sweeney, David Christie, talking you through the first half. We'll be back for the second half. Take care, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel your bones start to shake?
Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, to the IMB World Series GT3 EU Season 4. We're back for Race 2 of Round 6 here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We had a very entertaining Race 1. Once again, it will be myself, Zach Sweeney and David Christie talking you through all of the action. And well, David, an exciting Race 1 and an even more exciting prospect for Race 2.
Isn't it just? I mean, the fact that we've got all these pro standings updated, Galvin Kilberg a little bit getting caught up by Neil Butler there, just 12 points in between them. Stuart Reynolds into to that third place. Again, now you have to think that it is now just a three-way fight for this championship here, Zach.
Yeah, you would say that Albin Kjellberg, Neil Butler, Stuart Reynolds have all been sort of head and shoulders above the rest and have put in the results consistently week in, week out. Chris Chatterton, all the rest have been there, but not quite to the level of Kjellberg, Butler and Reynolds. And well, it's a similar story exactly in Pro-Am as well. Between Lucas Romano and John Williams, that gap has closed, but still Lucas Romano on top by just a mere 2 points going into race 2. Stuart Varner's there in P3 after a race win here for race number 1 of round 6. Liam Mahone just in behind P4 has lost that P3 in the championship. Michael Patman rounding off the top 5, but very close to Felix Piel. So good couple of little skirmishes up and down the championship. In the AMS though, Conor Botting has relinquished the race lead to Dirk Bout by a singular point, and while Lewis Boubier also has closed that gap up. So now the gap is only 9 points between the top 3 in the championship. Tony Norgran, Yamis Aston 4 and 5 in the championship, and still again very close between the two of them. Tony Norgran not too far off the top 3 in AMS, but you still have to say that amongst all 3 categories we have got a clear sort of rivalry between 2 or even 3 drivers.
We absolutely do, and the thing is now is that it's these 50-minute races, Zach, that it all comes to a head. It all has to count. We saw last week in the US, for instance, with the 25-minute race, your 2 AM leaders coming together on the very final lap. You cannot afford to have moments like that happening, regardless if it's the EU or the US one. So yeah, fingers crossed we get a good clean race. We certainly did have, for the most part, one in the EU, in the first race. And what I think is they're going to take all the information that they got right from that first race, they're going to apply it to this one, and they're hopefully going to have a very fruitful one in terms of overtaking. They know they can make overtakes in that final corner. They know that they can make chances on those long straightaways. But like we saw with Harry Wills as well, you need to be able to work together to try and push the cars up together.
For sure, you definitely do need to work together. It is a team game, even if you are not on the same team, and I'm sure we're definitely going to see some drivers learn from their mistakes here in race 2, though this is how they rack up. Reverse grid, of course, for the top 10. So it is Kenny Herman and Callum Beeman that share the front row of the grid, I should say. Chris Chatterton, Harry Wills 3 and 4, with Yamantas in P5, with Kieran Smart there in P6. Andy Miller and Stuart Reynolds will share the 4th row of the grid, with Albin Kjellberg and Neil Butler are top 2 in race 1, sharing the 5th row of the grid. Thomas Dowdridge, Thomas Wright are just in behind there, 11th and 12th, because they didn't quite make it to the checkered flag in race 1. Michael Patman takes pole for the Pro-Ams ahead of the Frenchman of Francois Perdreau in P2. Juho Hotonen starts up there in P3, with the Belgium of Didier Vlaming there in 4th. Ashraf El Haddad, a good result for him, starts in P5 for race 2, ahead of Alex Swanberg there in 6th. Chris Thacker will line up alongside Edward Packer, who took a podium, very good podium, in race 1. John Williams, Stuart Varnes, P9 and P10, with Liam Mahan and Felix Piel, P11 and 12. Again, 2 drivers that didn't quite make the checkered flag in race 1. Same too with Jeremy Boiva, Lucas Romano, and Dean Timms all the way back down in P15. Connor Botting has got some redemption to make up for his race 1 and for his championship as well, but pole position for race 2 definitely starts him off on the right foot ahead of Jasper Tjarks in P2. Jarmo Sastamon and Dirk Bout share the second row with Kurt Van Hohenacker and Craig Schill 5 and 6. Mark Bailey, James States P7 and 8, returning all ground, and Lewis Bouvier rounding off the top 10. Johan Reigns and Gus Franken round off in the 6th row of the grid, 11th and 12th, and I do believe that does round off our grid here for race 2. No, it doesn't actually. We go a little bit further. Navarro de Bruva, Jürgen Knockout, and Glenn Humberstone 13th, 14th, and 15th. And there we go. And we are rolling now to get underway for race number 2 of round number 6 here for the IMB World Series GT3 EU season number 4. Kenny Harriman, Callum Beeman share the front row of the grid up in the pros. We're going to have to see how they get as they barrel their way down the short run towards the first braking zone of T1. The lights will come on. The lights will go even quicker as they approach the end of the start zone, waiting for Kenny Harriman to drive them towards the braking zone. He goes, and to Callum Beeman's defense, he does react quite well, better than most people did in race 1, though Harry Wills is trying to go to the outside of the BMW of Chris Chatterton, makes it stick to the inside of T2, 2 wide, multiple rows deep as we saw in race 1, again 3 wide, bit of contact, Andy Miller going off into the barrier, I think, bit of contact, he's been able to get away with it. Leading the way though goes the Porsche as they once again head their way in towards T1. Juha Huhtinen getting it all sorts wrong, a little bit shaky as they head their way in. Pedro retains second place in a fight there between Diede Vlaming, Alex Bomberg goes in very wide, does the BMW of the Belgian, and now not quite got the best of runs towards turns 3 and 4. John Williams, though, making up some steady progress. He's got Edward Packer just in behind, more progress than Stuart Viners. They're still languishing in P9. Now the AMs to get underway. Connor Botting, Jarmo Sastamon, Botting needs to go and get away quick. Jarmo Sastamon, a pretty sluggish start for him in that green Mercedes, but still enough to retain second place. Dirk Bout and Jasper Tjarks fighting side by side in towards the first chicane of T1 and T2. Lewis Bouvier up there into the top 10. He's being fought though by Navarro de Boiva, but a very good start for Connor Botting, and you have to say he needed that.
He really did, didn't he? It was so crucial that he get a good start, and that's exactly what he did. Francois Pedro, though, really fancies getting mixed in with this already. Juho Huhtinen is going to be next up on his hit list right now. Surely he's not going to go around the outside. That's a ballsy move. Can't quite make it work, but it's all kicking off all the way through the field. Back up with the pro here, Zach, and I mean, a brilliant lap here for the pros. They've been able to just kind of keep themselves out of trouble. You've got Diede Vlaming there. That looks like possibly a slowdown penalty, and you'd think that some of the cars are going to see this and decide to just move out the way, but this is going to be a frantic opening couple of laps here.
Yeah, they need to make those positions while they're fresh, while everyone's close, and they can do it. This is Chris Chatterton looking to the outside of Kieran Smart, not quite able to make that one work, and all he's done is actually kill his momentum going through the sort of S section towards the second chicane. Lucas Romano, and that is Felix Pial. Felix Pial, the Porsche, gets sent round off into that infield grass area. Not the start to the second lap that he would have wanted at all. Edward Packer to the outside. That is a brilliant move. Late on the brakes ahead of Stuart Viners, who I think has been a little bit cautious to get this race underway. Johan Reigns, though, not waiting around to get up the inside of Navarro de Boiva. Gets that one stuck, though. Is being fought back by de Boiva. All getting squeezed into the wall of champions. That is going to cause a whole ordeal just in behind as Jürgen Knockout tries to find a way through as well. And there is Mark Bailey up the inside of Jarmo Sastamon, who, after staying quite strong in P2 off the start, falling back to P6 now and going into lap 3.
Zach, I think we're going to need to get you an oxygen supply for the end of this race here, because this is just wild as we're seeing some chaotic scenes down in Am. But thankfully, we're saying chaotic, but it's still reasonably orderly. They're not colliding into each other as we saw in previous races. They're actually just jostling for position. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to cost them time, this is going to cost them positions, but if that's what they want to do, I guess, so be it. As we see, De Boiver round the outside there. That was never going to work there because Romano, tried to go round the outside because De Boiver had that inside line that was always going to be kept there. Yeah, Lucas Romano really getting off to a poor start here for race 2. Here's Lewis Bouvier now trying to fight his way towards the front in race 2. Very late on the brakes. Is he going to go to the outside of Jarmo Sastamon? No way. If the Audi does this, he's a little bit too late, though. Not quite got the drive. Jarmo Sastamon has given him a wide berth. Has just said, off you go then, mate. On your horse. And off you go. He's there up in a P7. A sensational move there from the Briton, who was trying to, again, as we say,
claw the points back versus his teammate of Connor Botting, and Dirk Bounce there in second place now in this race. He's done a fantastic job, not waiting around at all. And Jarmo Sastamoinen was just like, cool, awesome, off you go.
After you, son, after you. That's exactly what it looked like there. But either way, I mean, fantastic overtake round the outside there. I would never have seen that coming in a month of Sundays, but here we are, 4.5 minutes into this 50-minute race here. And thankfully, I think now we're starting to, I'm going to say starting to, see the things that the race start to calm down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we still have 3
cars. Yeah, I'm
cars
just find the desk
to
touch here.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I've got a wooden desk just underneath me. It's fine. I'm holding it with my thumb as we speak while I press control for push to talk. So you're all good. I've got you covered.
I've got a wooden desk as well, but it took me way too long to actually realise that, Zach.
Oh, well, that says a lot about your intelligence levels, David Christie. I'm joking.
I ain't even going to argue with you at that point.
No.
It's
I mean,
you're just spitting facts right now.
You call me Ewan, I'll sort of talk about pies for the rest of the broadcast, this, that, and the other. And yeah, no, I mean, yeah, David Christie, he's lovely, but he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Let's say that much. Anyway, back to the live action, just so I can cut away, so he can't defend himself. Back now, still amongst the pro-ams. You said it was calming down, really not. Alex Bomberg there, sort of taking a spin, and then immediately heading himself into the pit lane, which I think is the wisest decision. Has he done it all by himself?
Let's find out then. It's into the final corner. Yes is the answer. Absolutely nails that final chicane. Bumps into one of the BMWs there and decides to sneak himself. To be fair, he's actually really lucky that he could still sneak himself into pit lane out of that.
Yeah, I think so, because you don't want to be driving backwards on track. But yeah, that car is a little bit damaged, to say the least. But yeah, no, just completely rid himself into the wall of champions, and luckily, as you say, found his way back into pit lane. This is a fight between Van Hohenacker and James Slates. The fight for the fringes of the top 5 amongst some of the ants. Connor Botting is doing a fantastic job ahead of Dirk Bouts. Those two are really just sort of running away with it up in first and second. There's Lewis Bubio, though, making yet another place. And I think for a number of these AMs, they don't want to fight with Boubier at all. They know how quick he is. They know how pointless it is fighting. So they're just happy to let him go.
Yeah, that could be very well what they're actually saying. They know that he's able to go at a much better rate of knots than they are. It might be the wisest thing for them just to let him go and try and get whatever slipstream and try and let him clear a path for them to get through. It's a fairly intelligent decision to do if that's the case, because that would be the fastest move for them to actually be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. All they're doing is damaging the pair of their races, which isn't great in the grand scheme of things. They don't want to slow themselves down, tripping up over someone who's trying to fight for the championship. It is just pointless. Though Harry Wills amongst the pros, still driving along well. Kenny Harriman, though, Harry Wills is doing him a world of favours, it must be said, keeping this train of cars all the way back down to Thomas Wright there in P10. So yeah, he's keeping a good 9 cars behind him as they fight their way through. And Kenny Harriman has just been able to use this to stretch the advantage out in front. And there is Kieran Smart going around, I think, going into the quite high-speed chicane. He's now tumbled his way back to the bottom of the running order in the pros. And, well, that is what you sort of have to come to expect. You can see there the gap that Kieran Smart's car would have been filling. But, yeah, in a pack like this, it's so easy to make those mistakes.
Yeah, it really is, and unfortunately we see them all the time here as we get a replay of what actually happened with Kieran Smart. Oh yeah, that's a difficult one, and then he fires it into reverse trying to make it quicker, and then he can't get it out of reverse. That makes it even worse for him. Oh, that is an F in chat for sure on that one. As
the cool kids would say, for sure.
I'm definitely not one of the cool kids.
No, no. I mean,
exactly.
It's not as bad as when Lewis McGlade tries to do it. Oh my word, he's a fantastic commentator, but yeah, he's definitely not hip and down cool with the kids. He's fine. He doesn't watch this, so I can get away with that.
Is that suboptimal?
It is very suboptimal. It'd be suboptimal for me if he found out. But it's fine, because for the 24 hours of the Nordschleife, he oh my word, we'll get back to that in just a second. There's James Slates going very sideways, going into the hairpin, just getting it a little bit wrong on the brakes. This is Johan Reigns putting some pressure on Jarmo Sastamoinen. Yet again, the Audi going to the outside. Is it going to be deja vu of what happened previously? Jarmo Sastamoinen gives him some space, not quite enough that he gave to Lewis Boubier a couple laps ago, but now able to stay in front. But yeah, Lewis McGlade, for the 24 hour of the Nordschleife, we had 2 hours together. about 10 minutes in, his PC died. He didn't get back in until sort of 20 minutes after that, and his PC kept dying. So I think I'm just a little bit of slating.
I'm not even getting involved with that one, so it's absolutely fine. Craig Schill off the track there, though. He's looking a bit lonely down there all by himself. I've got no idea how he's managed to do that.
Somehow. And yeah, I mean, that is, again, showing how testing the circuit can be at times, even to put you in the weirdest of spaces. Same too with sort of how we've seen with the with the Porsche sometimes. It's very temperamental. This is the wrong replay. That was Tony Norgren getting himself to the inside. This is what happened to the 82 Porsche of Craig Schill going into the high-speed chicane again. And yeah, it's just the ballast of the car looping round. And in that Porsche, of course, these cars do have, TC and ABS, traction control, and the anti-lock braking system to stop those sorts of things. But you still can't avoid the sheer inertia of the car, the weight transfer and things like that. It's going to force it to loop round. And this is Peugeot just not quite using that ABS to full effect, it must be said. Could have stamped his left foot down just a little bit more, and unfortunately for him, relinquished that place.
Yeah, it swings and roundabouts, is it? There's nothing really you can say, because it's just one of those unfortunate accidents, which might be what's about to happen to Arias Diamantis right now, because he's got Stuart Reynolds and Albin Kjellberg right on the back of him, and that's usually a pairing. Also Neil Butler up there as well. That's usually a pairing that does end in disaster. John Williams into the pits right now, and of course that's the other thing that we've not even touched on yet here, Zach, is the fact that with this being a 50-minute race here, mandatory pit stop, as you can see Reynolds having a look up the inside there. That forces Diamantis to have to go around there. Have a look at Neil Butler as well. He fancies getting a little bit of this as well. Little cheeky move there from Albin Kjellberg, and yeah, this is a tasty little four-way scrap for what is fourth position right now.
Yeah, no, and of course for Stuart Reynolds, Albin Kjellberg, Neil Butler, they want to find their way forward. This is Gus Franken again fighting with Jarmo Sastamainen, who all he seems to be doing is going backwards, which is such a shame for him. Navarro Boiva also wants to slice to the kick, having a bit of a look, but there's the fight there for the top 10 amongst some of the AMs. Do want to see how that's going for the pros, though. Stuart Reynolds still leads the way. Diamantis is now running side by side with Albin Kjellberg. There's the Porsche of Neil Butler. To the inside goes that black BMW of the Swede. Bit of a shake, though, from Diamantis. That's going to invite Neil Butler to have a look to the outside of T2. Has he got the momentum to get the power on early? No is the answer to that question. He's going to have to tuck in behind. He's going to have a look towards 3 and 4 late on the brakes. Oh my word, Diamantis just doesn't quite give him enough space going in, turning a little bit too early, careers himself backwards into the barrier. A light tap, it must be said, but still enough to lose him a couple of places. And oh, that's quite touch and go, I think.
Ouch. It's all I can say to that one. That was a little bit of unwanted contact. And listen, this is, I guess, just deserves for saying that the pros knew exactly how to keep the pace and keep it nice and patient and calm. That's just not happened in this second race whatsoever. We've seen outside of the top four there, just knocking lumps out of each other. That's the only word that we can use to describe what is going on here. With the AMs, actually, the AMs seem to be a heck of a lot more controlled and precise with this one. But again, with another 35 minutes left to go here, I do wonder how much longer that's going to last.
Yeah, it's a short fuse, and all it needs is a small bit of ignition, and bang, is sometimes the case with this series. It's great, though, to have such tense action all the way through. We're just waiting for that small spark to ignite the combustion that is going to sort of play off the chain reaction of just weird, crazy, chaotic events that will then display from that point on. But yeah, still waiting for the pit stop window, still waiting for a number of things left in this race to happen. Just time, really, is also going to be a pretty deciding factor. Here's Stuart Vine, our race one winner, still down in P8, and not having the best of runs, it must be said. This is what happened. I'm going to take a look. This is Francois Peugeot, who had a bit of an issue a couple laps ago, gets completely sent to the inside. Is that Liam Ahern? Stuart Vines gets involved, a bit of a tab. Oh, that sucks. My heart goes out. That is unfortunate.
And he just went straight to pit lane after that one. That is an F.5 right there. My goodness. Oh, that's a disconnect if ever I saw one.
Oh, F4. That is him out of here. I mean, it wasn't even his fault, the original incident. He just got caught up, half wheels on the asphalt, half wheels on the grass. Uneven distribution of grip, and around he goes. Not even TC is going to help you with that one. That is just a bad time, to be fair. Lewis Beebe up into P4 in the AMS as well. He's making some steady progress, and only now about 6.5 seconds off his team at corner bossing and championship rival, of course, so doing well to benefit off the reverse grid. This is James States again going off. Is that you with Jasper Tjarks going into T1? We're going to have a look as we go in. There's the, there they are, running through the little kink there. There's the 72 BMW, gets sent, loops around by himself, which is strange because I don't think he was actually on the grass. There is a bit of an indent as well, which is a tarmac runoff. I'm not quite sure as to how that happened, but it did, and that is a big shame there for both of them, to be fair.
Well, this is going to be an eventful race then. I think we're going to certainly need some sleep by the end of this 50 minutes for sure, because I think we're going to have about 5 cars left if it keeps going on at this rate. Back with this pro battle then, it's Harry Wills, Chris Chatterton, Stuart Reynolds and Albin Kjellberg, the 4 of them separated by about 1.2 seconds right now. We've done 9 laps of the race so far, and yeah, it's been a fairly chaotic and turbulent start to the race here. This is the battle for the Pro-Ams right now. You've got Michael Patterman ahead of Juho Huitinen and Rafael Haddad. Again, they're very close as well, about a second and a half for them. Different though for Connor Botting. He's got about 4 seconds of a lead over Dirk Bouts and Mark Bailey, but I mean, some big battles going on throughout the field.
Yeah, and again, it's the storyline, the narrative of this season running its way through continuously from start to end of the season. This is yet another chapter here for round 6, and well, it's definitely a very good page indeed here for race 2. And again, as it was for race 1, it's a great read, definitely would recommend. And yeah, it's continuing on and on and on, and especially for you, Houghton, in that pro-am fight, he's doing fantastic. Touch wood again. Don't want to jinx him, the Finn. He's doing a great job. But yeah, it's he's fighting for the race lead. It would be a perfect sort of way to round off this season, I think, after the misfortune he's had to start the second half of the season off strong. Unlike that BMW actually going into turn 2. Who's this? This is Francois Pedro, who's really having a tough time in this race, and so too is his BMW.
Let's see what happens here. This is quite painful to watch all this happening, because poor Francois, I mean, we saw him have, oh no, that's, yeah, at which point I'm just like, nope, and like you said earlier, Alt F4, just straight out of it.
I'm not entirely sure that was more, I guess, of just a vehicle damage thing, and him not being too comfortable with a very stricken BMW, which is fair enough, to be fair, but hey, well, this is the fight now. We're between Dirk Bouts and Mark Bailey, the fight for second place amongst the AMS rages on. Lewis Bubio as well, not too far off them either. Thomas Reiter down in P10. He's got Kieran Smart trying to recover himself and get back onto the pack, but has sort of dispersed amongst Harry Wills' lot, who still are behind him. Chris Chatterton, Stuart Reynolds not able to find a way through. They have to say Stuart Reynolds, Albin Kjellberg, Neil Butler now trying to get onto the back of him once more. You have to say that Mercedes does look feisty, leading the trio of the championship rivals. He's doing all the hard work for them.
It really does, and am I the only one thinking right now that Stuart Reynolds, Albin Kjellberg and Chris Chatterton right now are quite happy to sit behind Harry Wills? They just don't seem to be forcing the issue very much. Maybe trying to catch up to Kenny Hermans, who is 4.3 seconds, although their puts paid to that one. That's going to be a slowdown penalty for Chris Chatterton.
That is indeed. That's going to invite all of them through, put Stuart Reynolds onto the back of his teammate of Harry Wills. So maybe we might see some team antics play a factor here. We've seen it before for sure, but is it going to play a factor in this race? Back to the fight for second place amongst the AMS. Lewis Boubier has been on fire. Class of the field in race 2, of course, started back in P10 due to the reverse grid nature of race 2, and since has not looked back, fighting his way out all the way through the field. Now on to this fight for second, having a bit of a look, sending the move under brakes in towards the hairpin, though opting just to back out of it. Not quite going to do his momentum any good. Harry Wills lost places to Stuart Reynolds, Albin Kjellberg and Neil Butler, our championship trio, now back in P5. So we're going to take a look as to what happened here, and he just went wide, just let them both through.
Yeah, it just looks like he's went too deep into the corner there, and I mean, you would take that because at least you know that he's right back onto the tail end of this group here. Well, actually, maybe not now, because he's started to drop back quite significantly on that. However, as I say, we know the pace that Harry has got here, so I'm really not all that too concerned. But Again, just so much action going on here. Chris Thacker into the pits as well now, as we've got Dirk Wout just ahead, Mark Bailey and Lewis Booby. As you said, that fight for second place still raging on in the arms right now.
Just to blow more smoke up the backside of Lewis Bube, his pace has been phenomenal. 34.6 is his best lap time. That's comparable with Stuart Reynolds of a 34.5, Albin Kjellberg of 34.3. So for an Am, comparing himself to the pros in terms of one lap pace is very impressive. His consistency has not been nothing to shy away from either, and he has really just skyrocketed himself, and you would expect is one to fight for at the bare minimum second place in this race. There he is in that black Audi on the back of Mark Bailey, now able to just take his time. He's gotten through the majority of the traffic. Now he's got a couple of cars in front of him. He just can take his time with this one. I think he's not going to, send moves or do anything silly. Happy to sit back just for now, analyze the situations a little bit better, because he knows these two are going to be much harder foes to get past.
And that's the thing as well. What we've got to keep reminding our audience at home is the fact that, we've got 30 minutes left to go. We've still got another half an hour to go in this race. So it doesn't matter if you're the fastest guy on track right now. You've still got that amount of time where things to go wrong. That's why we're seeing the likes of Kjellberg just tucking in behind Stuart Reynolds. If Reynolds makes a mistake, you better be sure that Kjellberg will absolutely jump on that one. But for just now, you just need to keep it on the track and then set yourself up for the best possible final 10 minutes of the race, surely.
For sure, and it is going to close up when we get to that pit window as well. We do need to factor in a bit of strategy into this race. No tyres, just to top up on fuel, though we've seen time and time again how the timing of that pit stop can be the difference in terms of winning, losing a place or not over the course of the 2 seasons that I've definitely been covering of this championship. So I'm sure it's been no different for the other two as well. But yeah, it's been a big factor when you come into race 2. It's not like an endurance race or anything like that where you have to go in, save tyres, double stint, triple stint, save fuel, blah, 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 blah. But there is still an element of it, because if you time it wrong, you come out in a bit of traffic, then you're not going to be doing too well at all. If you don't give yourself enough clear air, this, that, and the other, there is an element of luck, but definitely an element of strategical knowledge to know when and when not to is the best time to come in.
Yeah, and that's the strategical knowledge that I have got absolutely none of, which is why you don't see me in championships like this, because I find it so difficult to sort of ease off the throttle and think more long term, think of the bigger picture, which these drivers, I think, to give them credit here, Zach, they do very, very well for the most part.
They do indeed, and you were in the commentary booth for my sole experience of an endurance race, and you'll know exactly how that went. I did the opening lap of the stint for the 6 hours of Le Mans, went into the first of the 2 Mulsanne chicanes, and completely caused a massive pile-up, because it's just natural. My sprint race mindset told me to just sort of send it in. And not lift off, do this, and not settle into the race long term. Even though I'd done a number of endurance race and commentary beforehand, and I knew what I had to do, and naturally you still didn't. And it's a mindset that you do have to switch on when you go into a slightly longer race with an element of strategy into it. It is a whole different ball game. And it just goes to show that those that can switch between the sort of the sprint and the slightly longer mindsets. Of course, they've come in from 25 minute sprint of race 1 straight into a 50-minute sort of still a sprint, but still with an element of strategy in race 2. You have to completely flick your mindset at the push of a button and just tell yourself, right, this is the job that we've got to do and I've got to deliver. And for the most part, they do that.
As much as I belittle myself in my sim racing ability, that's about the one redeeming factor I think that I have got, is that on the start of endurance races I can just switch it on immediately and really get quite a few positions on there, because most of the other drivers are like yourself there, Zach, and just trying to ease themselves into it, where I'm just like foot down straight through, and I've taken about 8 cars on the opening lap. They all passed me though when I inevitably stuff it into the wall 10 laps later though, so swings and roundabouts and all that. Chris Chatterton, is he dead? We need to find out what has happened here to Chris Chatterton.
I'll have to take a look. He was fighting there for the podium amongst the pros, going into what is the second chicane of the circuit. Oh, that's harsh. That is harsh. Oh my word! Nearly into the side of Andy Miller, who had to take avoiding action. Did not want to have flashbacks of Watkins Glen after what happened last time he got involved in a crash. But just dipping one rear wheel onto that curb side by side action between Lucas Romano and Liam Mahern. Lucas Romano doing a great job of recovering compared to John Williams, who was a lap down. So Lucas Romano trying to redeem himself for race one. Great switch back there from Lucas Romano because Liam Mahern tried to defend the 39 BMW, trying to go the long way round, has to settle in behind, but Liam Mahern with a compromised run. They've also got Jeremy De Boyver lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. Lucas Romano with a fantastic drive off the hairpin. Now down the Casino straight, pulls to the left-hand side. It will be the outside line for the chicane, but if he can just get his rear wheel ahead, he will have the position. Liam Mahern tucks in tow, and up in a P6 goes Lucas Romano. A great display of offensive ability there.
Yeah, that was a fantastic little scrap there. It was... you know, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. They really, really gave everything that they possibly could in that little fight there. So fantastic to see. Meanwhile, with the Pro-Ams, you've got Juho Huhtinen just 0.2 of a second to get ahead of Achraf El Haddad there. Brilliant little fight here. But what I'm considering is the fact that we're probably about 5 minutes away from pit stops right now.
We are indeed, but Achraf El Haddad and Juho Huhtinen are ignoring that completely because the Porsche has got a good run to the right-hand side. Shorter run on this run towards the high-speed chicane. Has to tack in, though, kind of tarnish his momentum as he runs through a compromised line, and Juho Huhtinen is able to take the better racing line going through. Michael Patterman has kept them both at an arm's length back, but only by about 1.5–2 seconds has been the stalemate. Juho Huhtinen definitely setting his eyes forward for the race victory, and he's trying to do his best to stay on to the back of Michael Patterman. But again, the pit stops will be the deciding factor. Here's Connor Botting in the AMS. He's leading the way and doing exactly what he needs to do. Race 1, P10, fine, shrug it off. Coming into race 2, leading the way by 5 seconds ahead of his championship rival, and of course with Lewis Boubier now down in P10. Not entirely sure if he's at a pit stop, but he's down in P10. Connor Botting is doing exactly what he needs to do here for race 2.
Isn't he just? It's been a fantastic race in the AMS so far. Just to answer your question, yes, Lewis has done a pit stop. It was on lap 15, so it was this lap round. We've got Liam Mahern and Jeremy De Boyver from Pro-Am going into the pit lane just now as well. So I think this very well could be pit stops this time round for a lot of these cars here, Zach.
Yeah, it seems to be the fringes of their fuel tank's capability side by side, though, between Van Hoenacker and Gus Franken. Is that just settling in front? And yeah, unfortunately, Van Hoenacker not able to get in front. There is that Lewis Boubier? That's not Lewis Boubier just in behind. That's Gus Franken just in behind Van Hoenacker as they run through the hairpin once again. There's Jarmo Sastamoinen just in front, so I'm guessing that is just going to be a lap car in the way of them both. So it is a fight there for P number 8 between Kurt Van Hoenacker and Gus Franken just in behind. So good couple of scraps just in behind, well, just up and down the field, I say, just yeah, really negotiating their way around quite well in this race. Now ticked over the halfway mark, and here is our leaders in the pro. Well, second place, Kenny Herman is about 3 seconds up the road. So for Stuart Reynolds and Albin Kjellberg, they are sort of working together, or they are championship rivals. They are sort of going toe-to-toe as we see the BRT BMW just leaving the pit lane, letting them both through. Stuart Reynolds and Albin Kjellberg, I think, are working together, trying to think of the bigger picture here and get after Kenny Herman.
You can see Aries Humantis into pit lane there. Liam Ahern has had a bit of an oopsie there. Let's see what's happened here. This was just coming out of the pit lane, and I'm wondering if it's going to be onto the cold tyres. He goes straight on. That's a little bit unusual.
Yeah, and escape back to the pit lane as well. So Liam Ahern really having a tough time over the course of this evening. He's just not been on it.
I wonder actually, has he had a penalty coming out of pit lane and he's just decided to throw it away?
Could be speeding in the pit lane or anything, really. And yeah, just decided to just throw it away because it's not really his race. This is Stuart Reynolds though, Albin Kjellberg into the back of him. This is a replay, not quite the live action, not getting them the best run off the high-speed chicane. There's also Neil Butler trying to clear his way through, so Stuart Reynolds not having the best of runs. This is Yomantas down in P10, but yeah, Stuart Reynolds making a little bit of a mistake that's cost him second place to Albin Kjellberg. And if there's anyone who you do not want to let have clear air in front of you, it's Albin Kjellberg.
Yeah, that's or Harry Wills. that's just what you don't want to happen. Akraf El Haddad has had a moment as well as Juho Huitinen. So let's oh, I get the feeling that these are all related right now. This is going to be coming out of pit lane, isn't it? As we've got 3 cars here. So this is one of the back markers here. Tries to turn in. That's a little bit unfortunate. Akraf El Haddad playing pool with the cars in front. To be fair though, it does look like Haddad just lifted off and let the 2 of them just get on with it.
So owned up to his mistake straight away, and it could have ended worse for Juho Huitinen. And I had my heart in his mouth, in my mouth for him, not my heart in his mouth. That'd be a little bit strange to say. This is a little bit illegal as well, I'm sure. But yeah, no, it's I do have to feel bad for him there because I mean, just the unlucky season that he's had. I thought today would be different. Unfortunately, it still could be with about 20 minutes left to go in this race. Still a round of pit stops as well for a number of people. Stuart Reynolds though is keeping well with Albin Kjellberg, despite the fact that Mercedes does look a little bit dented, but it seems to be still driving quite well, maintaining that pace. Neil Butler, though, it must be said, he's kept with them, but not quite to the extent that I would have sort of imagined. This is Ashraf El Haddad trying to have another go to the inside of the right-hander, and the quick flick to the left. There's Juho Huitinen going off, though. That's going to invite Ashraf El Haddad to go through, so maybe the pressure of eyeing up a move has sort of thwarted the Finn to go in a bit deep. Cost him now second place, still on the podium, of course, but again, a clumsy mistake that you cannot be making under pressure.
100%. That's just not what you want to be doing here. Here comes Stuart Reynolds trying to have a look on Albin Kjellberg. We saw that mistake earlier on, but Miller and Dandridge into the pits here for Pro. I think Harry Wills pulled a blinder here because he came into the pits last lap round, and I think that he's maybe got a bit of a jump on the rest of the drivers here. Neil Butler though sitting fastest sector in P3 right now, so yeah, he's looking quite handy as well. In Sector 3, excuse me, is what I meant to say there. So, yep, there we go. Harry Wills takes past Andy Miller and Thomas Dandridge. Now, he already had those positions, but again, we know how easily you can lose positions in pit laners. Who is that?
That's Jarmo Sastaminen getting it all sorts of wrong, just in the way of everyone. Oh, no!
No way. No way.
Big story nearly hits into Stuart Reynolds. Neil Butler gets his way through. The Swede is not going to be happy about that. You have to be kidding. Completely straight line that chicane. We're going to take another look at it now. Just doesn't even attempt. Wow, that is a spectacular crash, but even more so for the championship. How has that come about? And I think after this race, Sastaminen is going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Oh, I know. I'm going to have to try and cue that one up again. That was, that was so unlike him as well. For that to happen. We're watching him on board here, and that was deliberate. That's what it looked like. And again, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that he turned that car to the right just as was it just me?
I don't know. There definitely is 2 ways you can look about it. Yes, it did look a little bit deliberate how he just turned right straight into the side of Albin Kjellberg. But also, there's an element of, was he just trying to do the lesser of 2 evils? Was he just trying to avoid Stuart Reynolds in front of him? Was he trying to get out the way of everyone? And unfortunately, Kjellberg was just collateral damage in all of that. Either way, it's one of those things that just really aren't great, what you don't like to see, and that could spell disaster for Kjellberg's championship. As we say time and time again, the margins are so slim that even something like this can spell disaster.
Yeah, 100%, and that is a very, very difficult pill to swallow there for Albin Kjellberg. Didn't look like there was anything leading up to that just now. Let's take you and show you a little bit of a catch-up through the race that we've got so far. Race number 2 here in round 6 of the World Series Leagues GT3 Championship. Kenny Herman's currently leading Pro right now ahead of Neil Butler and Thomas Reiter. Pit stops are currently in the middle of the goal right now. Michael Patterman is in the lead of the Pro-Ams right now ahead of Akraf El Haddad and Juho Huitinen. And then in the AM battle as well, Connor Botting leads Dirk Bouts by about 5 seconds, and then it's another second back down to Mark Bailey. We saw that huge accident between Jarno Sostamoinen there and Albin Kjellberg there. A shocking incident here, and I get the feeling that there is most definitely going to be some afters after that one. And in fact, as I say that, I'm very quickly heading down to the driver chat to figure out exactly what on earth just happened there. As nothing has come up just now, but certainly you can be sure that there is going to be some afters during that one. We're currently watching that is Mark Bailey for Verve Racing Team down in the AM battle as well. We've got Thomas Dandridge, and you can see Andy Miller getting a slowdown as well. And the fact is that while all of the drivers are on track just now, we've got no idea where realistically they're going to filter out. The one thing that has come out is that Stuart Reynolds is in front of Harry Wills now. You've got a 4-car group here that's just up here. This is the battle for P2 in Pro-Am right now, and you've got Juho Huhtinen and Edward Packer there, but Harry Wills is behind this group, so he'll be wanting to clear it as quickly as he possibly can. With just, as we said, 15 minutes left to go in this race here, it really has had everything that we could possibly want to see. And Zach, I'm just still trying to unpack what the hell I just saw. I mean, there's no way that that's not going to be an absolutely massive penalty there for Jarno Sostamoinen.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. We'll have to wait and find out what exactly that is going to be. Of course, that's going to be to the admins and the steward's discretion, and it's their job, not mine, to deal with all that. So I won't comment on what I think it should be, but you can imagine it's going to be fairly harsh going the way of Jarno Sostamoinen. And it's a shame because he definitely is a driver that does like to keep clean and stay out of trouble and this, that and the other. We saw it even earlier on in this race alone, how he was just so willing to clear the way and just let people go through, mind his own business. Ashraf El Haddad, though, Juho Huhtinen and Packer all into the pit lane with 15 minutes left in this race to go. They head their way down pit lane, and it is pretty even between all of them. It's just going to be a case of who's got less fuel to fill up.
I'm just trying to see as well, because there was I don't think there was any incidents between Sostamoinen and our very unlucky the driver that got caught out without Albin Kjellberg. I didn't see anything happening between them, so I'm very confused to see that. However, we have to kind of just leave that in the past now, as the pit stops are all out. Now, the only thing that the pit stops have done is they kind of neutralise a lot of the race, because a lot of the battles that we did have now are null and void here. Yeah,
it's really shaking things up. Here's Tony Norgran just trying to negotiate his way through. That's Bailey just in front of him, the fight for second between the pair of them. Tony Norgran is doing a really good job closing the gap, actually, for the championship fight over the course of this round. So he's trying to make up as many points as possible, though still Connor Botting leading the way and still comfortably. There's Lewis Boubier up now into P5, now P4 after apologies pit stops, because he pit up very early to get some clear air, and it is working in his favour. He's now back up into where he was before the pit stop sequence. Now what's going to happen when Botting, Bailey and Norgran all come in?
Well, that is what we're going to find out. Kjellberg is back out of the pits just now, so he is trying to make a recovery drive just now, and well, I guess he's trying to do the best that he possibly can given the situation. Trying to get to the threshold of race distance where you can still score some points, because right now in P10 he'll still be scoring some points, which is better than nothing for Albin Kjellberg, considering he's already taken a fairly sizable drop week, one that only 12 points for that drop week. He doesn't want to get those 12 points back. He wants to try and keep his races better than 12 points scored all the way through. And, well, he really did that over the course of race 1, but still trying to just minimise the damage in race 2. Here's the incident that saw him taken out of contention in this race. Jarno Sostamoinen completely sending it into the side of him in a fantastic display of slow-mo action, it must be said. But Albin Kjellberg front bonnet onto the side of that tyre wall, bounced off into the extra one onto the outside there of the left-hander. This is what happened, the incident that I'm sure could decide the championship, something we will look back on in Bathurst if Albin Kjellberg doesn't quite manage to clinch the championship title. Jarno Sostamoinen flying through the air for whatever reason, intentional, accidental,
Damage limitation, I'm not too sure. But one thing that is certain is the fact that it's going to be testing this championship side by side between the two teammates, though, of Connor Botting, who's just emerged out of the pit lane, and Lewis Boubier, his teammate, to the inside of turns 3 and 4. Boubier looking to seal the deal. He's trying to now keep his foot into the outside through this next right-hand king. Not quite close enough. Connor Botting just staying in front for now, but Lewis Boubier is going to put that pressure on.
Great move round the outside. We move back up to the Pro-Ams then. This is Thomas Reiter and Kieran Smart fighting it out for P6 and into turn 1 there. That was just very, very nice round the outside for number 76 of Thomas Reiter there. Got that position and it quite honestly made it look very, very easy indeed.
Yeah, light work did Thomas Reiter. He's been doing really well over this race. So too is Lucas Romano. Now onto the back of Stuart Vinus for the top 5. Both of them have driven quite well. Vinus didn't quite have a great start to this race and had his little spin and misfortune, but still fighting well up in P5. So first and fifth, not going to be too bad of a result for him at all. Here's Thomas Reiter under pressure still from Kieran Smart, who's having a look to the outside. There's Andy Miller just in front. So a fight for fifth between the three of them. Reiter parks it quite well in that Porsche, though Kieran Smart might be able to have the better drive on that run towards the hairpin.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to have to wait and see, because we've got 10 minutes left to go in this race, and Lewis Boubier now fighting still for the lead of this race here with Connor Botting. Connor apparently coming out of absolutely nowhere right now. I do wonder though if the two of them are just playfully sparring here, given that their teammates, they might wait until the last sort of 10 minutes like now and just say, right, okay, we're just going to leave it here, we'll have a bit of fun. But how often have we seen it, Zach, when you're having a bit of fun and that's when it all goes wrong?
Yeah, well, here's a move there from Thomas Reiter to the outside of Andy Miller, who comes back at him to the next part of that chicane, ends up into the barrier, the wall of champions. There was a good move initially from Kieran Smart, though Andy Miller wasn't having any of it side by side. It's ended in disaster. We said it would as soon as someone tried it. This is another on board now with Andy Miller, actually another angle of the incident going in and just seeing it all in slow-mo. You can see there the Porsche just going in ahead. It gets a little bit sideways, has still got the inside line. Andy Miller just trying to straight line out, and I do think there that the Porsche was a little bit out of control. I don't think Thomas Reiter was completely in control of that Porsche. Kieran Smart managed to find his way through underneath the pair of them. But yeah, Andy Miller, I think, was right to try and take the track away from him, because he just had to. He had to try, because if he tried to give any more space, he would have ended up in the barrier anyway.
Well, this has been a fun and drama-free race, hasn't it? Goodness me, it's been absolutely manic. The chaos has really been left until the second race, and I think we're actually only going to have about 30 cars that are still going to be on the lead lap here. So a brilliant race nonetheless. I mean, Neil Butler obviously still in the lead just now with just 8 and a bit minutes left to go. But Zach, I don't know about you, I'm absolutely shattered after this one.
Yeah, I could do with that oxygen tank right about now, to be fair. But yeah, the lead of the race has shifted. Kenny Harriman down there in P9 the front runners have come into the pit lane over the course of this race. So
it was Zach. It was a 1 minute 23 second stop for Kenny Harriman's there.
That is strange. Andy Miller now into the pit lane, understandably so after that big shunt, but. Yeah, that is weird. Whether that was damage or just something happened in the pit lane that you couldn't quite be able to get going again. That's given the lead to Neil Butler, who is 2.5 seconds clear of Stuart Reynolds now, which is brilliant for Butler in his championship charge. Of course, it was coming into this race very close between himself and Albin Kjellberg. So to have those extra couple of points clear of him coming out of this race, as we see Tony Norgran and Dirk Bout side by side. Here's Norgran looking on the outside of the hairpin. Can he get it done? He's going to give him the squeeze, though, does Dirk Bout. Gives him a wide berth on the exit. Still not quite got the drive, though, and the Finn doing a much better job of getting his foot down. In fact, doing running side by side down the casino straight. There's Lewis Boubier and Connor Botting a couple of seconds up the road. The two teammates fighting over the race lead. But between Tony Norgran and Dirk Bout, still not giving those places up, even into that final chicane.
Yeah, it's just not happening, is it? And the thing is that for me, you get to this point in the race, and unless you're within 3 seconds of the car in front, it's done. You're not going to be able to. You, by all means, keep pushing and keep the pressure on, but realistically, yeah, it's not going to happen there. Also, I kind of just realised that Andy Miller here into pit lane, and most likely out of the race here.
You would, yeah, you would be probably fair in assuming that is the case after this incident here, and he's not quite been able to get back into the pit lane. I mean, he didn't even try to get back into the pit lane. He's taken it around for another lap, and understandably so. I think has just parked it with only a couple of minutes left to go. He's got the half distance. I think he's not too fussed about the points either, but still. Now what have we got? About just over 6 minutes left of racing action. We still have a fight for the AM lead between the two teammates, two championship rivals, of course, as well, of Connor Botting and Lewis Boubier. No, both of them have sort of been teasing us in terms of this fight. But as you say, as teammates, the golden rule is don't crash into your teammate, even if it is for a race lead. And
let them pass if they ask very nicely to. Or is that maybe just at the weekend? Anyway, Juho Huhtinen here just ahead of Edward Packer right now at 0.3 of a second. The gap now, this is definitely something that you would fight for here, Zach. This third position, final spot on the podium, you absolutely would give it hell for leather right now. It depends on whether it's worth it for Packer, but given that I don't think he's in for the championship, certainly for the top spots in championship, I'd be tempted just to give it a little go here. And Liam Ahern, his bad day goes from bad to worse.
Oh, that is salt in the wound at this point for Liam Ahern, especially considering he had already lost third place in the championship after race one. This is what happened to the Verve Racing team driver, going in again and just braking on the grass, and that is doing no one any favours. Managed to save it quite well, but again, just parking it on the infield section and carrying on just a moment after that. This is the fight, though, as we were talking about just a couple of moments ago, between Juho Huhtinen and Edward Packer. Also, and actually, no, between no one else. There's just a couple lap traffic in the way. Juho Huhtinen, though, is going to want to fight for this after the season he's had. A podium would be a perfect little morale boost going into the final bit of the season, though. He's gone a little bit too deep, not quite been able to keep that momentum going. He's managed to get away with it, not gone into the wall of champions. This is what happened, though, just a moment ago to the inside going into the hairpin, and a bit of contact door to door that might have cost him that place, but fortunately Packer wasn't able to get through, though it did cost him that place going into turn 1 and 2. Packer through and clearing off.
Yeah, let's have a look at how Packer got past it. It was on that start-finish straight on the run down to turn 1. A very, very simple move. It might have actually looked like he was letting him have it. Let's have a quick look at what happened to Felix Perl, another driver who has just had a miserable, miserable day. Is into the pits here, and I get the feeling that that is just him deciding his day is done, dusted, and it's time to give up.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, for a number of drivers that has been the case, and I'm sure it's no different for him still. This is Thomas Dandridge fighting with Harry Wills for the podium place. So for these two, this is quite important. Thomas Dandridge to the outside of the final chicane. Harry Wills going to hold firm and stay on the inside, though Thomas Dandridge is going to try and get that momentum, get the drive off, and have an attack down in towards the first chicane of T1 and T2. Down the start finish straight. I don't think he's quite close enough, but still putting some pressure on, just being in the mirrors of that Mercedes, because we know sometimes, I'm sure Thomas Dandridge will know, how on or off Harry Wills can be. You can put him under pressure and he'll thrive, or you can put him under pressure and he'll crack, and I think Thomas Dandridge is hoping for the latter.
That's exactly what he's hoping for here, as we're seeing the Audis of Botting and Boubier still fighting it out here. Harry Wills is under real pressure right now from Thomas Dandridge, doing everything that he needs to do right now. Didier Vlaminck gets a position here from Kurt Verhoeven. I'm just stunned at the chaos and the carnage that we're seeing as up the inside. Then what happened to the whole thing about teammates taking it easy with each other, as that is going to be up into the lead of the race. Connor Botting then from Lewis Boubier. That's a turn up for the books.
Yeah, well, they are definitely giving it some now into the final part of the race. Connor Botting still in the lead ahead of Lewis Boubier, but both of them giving it everything they can, I'm sure. Now heading into what is going to be the last couple of laps of this race. 2 minutes left to go, so I'm going to say 2 laps, because about a minute and a half per lap, though that is a pretty poor line coming out of there for Connor Botting. Could invite Lewis Boubier maybe to have a bit of a look at, indeed it is, to the outside of turns 1 and 2. Connor Botting on the inside. Is his teammate going to sail the long way round? The inside of turn 2 gets the squeeze, comes back to the inside. outside. The two Prime Motorsport Audis run side by side for the lead. Championship rivals as well, it must be said. And Connor Botting forced to concede to his much faster teammate, as has been the case for the last 48 minutes and 10 seconds of race 2 here for round 6 of the IMB World Series GT3 European for season number 4. Lewis Bouvier has been on fire in terms of pace, caught up to his teammate and is now past. A fight for the lead amongst the Pro-Ams as well between Michael Patterman and Ashraf El Haddad. Ashraf El Haddad in that grey and black Porsche to the outside of the final chicane. Brilliantly done. Michael Patterman coming back at him though, side by side down the pit straight.
Good Lord Almighty, we've had to wait 48 minutes for it all to go off like this, but El Haddad caught out there. It's going to be late onto the brakes, hops over the curb there. Patterman keeps on to the lead of the race. The battle for the AMS has opened up a little bit, 0.4 of a second between Bouvier and Botting. That is absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, but my goodness me, where has all this come from here, Zach?
I said it was a short fuse and all it took was a small spark to ignite, and that is exactly what has been the case here today. Michael Patterman ahead still of Ashraf El Haddad, but only just. It's going to be the finest of margins that can decide the victor here for the 50-minute race. Ashraf El Haddad all over the rear end of Michael Patterman, the penultimate lap of this race, and well, we still don't know who's going to come out on top.
Thrilling stuff here, and the two of them just biding their time, waiting for the right opportunity here. We can see Neil Butler is just about to start his final lap of the race then for Pro in Full Send Racing, 2 seconds ahead of Stuart Reynolds here. This has just been an amazing scrap here. Connor Botting gets back into the lead of the AM race here then, and I just do not know where to look right now, Zach. This is just an epic finish to the race here.
Yeah, also look out, Neil Butler could make a mistake and relinquish the race lead to Stuart Reynolds. It's a tough ask. It's not a narrative I want to push, but it could happen given how crazy this race is. This is the fight for third place amongst the pros though. Harry Wills versus Thomas Dowdridge. Harry Wills in that Mercedes, the outside of turn 3, the inside of 4. There goes Dowdridge, still keeping him honest, side by side as they run their way through towards the third chicane off the circuit. Harry Wills has that inside line, but Dowdridge with the outside later on the brakes, cleaner part of the circuit, not quite able to get through. And as we head into the night time, you can see the very hard-working brake discs of Harry Wills as he tries to hang on to third place. Final half of the lap for Neil Butler and Stuart Reynolds, and only a second and a half between them.
Yeah, and that was a mistake that Harry Wills that led to Thomas Dowdridge getting right back up onto the tail end here, as we see Ashraf El Haddad back up onto the tail end here. We have to go back up to the pros here, because here is Harry Wills with just a tiny bit of moment.
Too deep. Thomas Dowdridge underneath him goes through third place. Harry Wills bottled it, it must be said, on that final lap. Now only one straight. Has he got the straight line speed to get back through or not? I don't think it's going to be the case. He's not quite going to be able to come through. Here is though Neil Butler across the line, takes victory for race 2 here at round 6 in at the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, Stuart Reynolds in second place, Thomas Dowdridge, Harry Wills. Who's going to get the final place on the podium? It's going to be Thomas Dowdridge, with Harry Wills just falling short after a very unfortunate mistake. Though this fight for the lead, the Pro-Ams, Michael Patterman, Ashraf El Haddad, as it has been for the latter portion of this race, it might go the way of the 75 Porsche, because Ashraf El Haddad, he tried, but it wasn't quite enough for the valiant defense of Michael Patterman. Though it could come down to this run here. He's going to do it. He's going to come across the line, does Michael Patterman, to take victory for the Pro-Ams. A very celebratory wiggle as he comes across. Ashraf El Haddad, a deserved second place, though it must be said. Edward Packer comes home P3, and here's Connor Botting, Lewis Bouvier. One more, a couple more corners left for them to go. One more straight. I don't think it's going to change as it is.
And breathe, Zach, and breathe. Yeah, that's definitely done and dusted, because Bouvier got a terrible exit out of that hairpin there. It's going to be the run down towards the chicane in the Wall of Champions. What a race these AM drivers have treated us to. Connor Botting, though, ahead of Lewis Bouvier and Tony Norgran. Let's not count it out yet. Still one more corner left to go here, and it can and has happened where it all goes wrong there. But no such luck there for Connor Botting, who comes across the line for Prime Motorsport to make it a 1-2 for the team. Tony Norgran is going to come across the line in P3. Dirk Bout's in P4, James Slate's in P5, and my goodness me, that race had everything, and I do literally mean everything you could have wanted in a race there, Zach.
compared this season to a book, and this race, it was a densely packed page of just action. It was one of those where you read the whole thing, then it all sort of scrumples down at the end. I don't read very often, but yeah, no, that was an awesome display in terms of racing action all throughout. We waited and waited for that fuse to blow, and when it went, it went. Neil Butler took victory for the pros ahead of Stuart Reynolds and Thomas Dandridge, who round off the podium. Harry Wills and Kieran Smart, your top 5, with Imantas in P6, Thomas Wright there, a good result for him in P7, Kenny Harriman, an unfortunate pit stop from the race lead, Cesar Money P8, Andy Miller, Albin Kjellberg, Chris Chatterton and Callum Beeman, unfortunately for them, couldn't quite see the checkered flag how they would have wanted to, especially for Albin Kjellberg, a narrative that could see the end of his championship campaign come this season's end. Taking a look now at the Pro-Ams, it was Michael Patterman, a hard-fought fight versus Ashraf El Haddad and Edward Packer, who completed the podium. Juha Huutonen, it was so close to a maiden podium this season, only P4, with Stuart Viners there in 5th. Lucas Romano comes home P6, with Jeremy De Boiver in P7. Chris Thacker, John Williams and Didier Vlaminck there complete the top 10, with Liam Mahon P11. Francois Pedro has seen better days in this championship and his sim racing career. A very unlucky display in race 2, with Felix Pale, Alex Bomberg and Dean Timms rounding off the Pro-Am running order. Now, finally, for the AMs, it was definitely no shy away from action here either. The two Prime Motorsport teammates of Connor Botting and championship rivals of Connor Botting and Lewis Boubier there, 1 and 2. With Tony Norgran rounding off the podium with Dirk Bouts and James Slade the top 5. Johan Reigns P6, Gus Franken just in behind there in P7, with the Englishman of Mark Bailey and Kurt Van Hoenacker P9. Glenn Humberstone P10, Craig Shield just in behind there on the fringes in P11. Jürgen Nocker at P12, Navarro de Boiver P13, Jamis Astamoinen. Oh, he's got some explaining to do after this race in P14, with Jasper Charks there, only 15th place for him. And well, before we jump to interviews, David, that was a race and a half.
Whew. That is all I can do after that one. A wild race that we just had there. A great night for sure. Race 1 was a little bit frantic, but race 2, yeah, I think, Zach, there is going to be a lot of answers needed to be given from a lot of the drivers after that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good night in the office for Neil Butler, of course, able to take a double victory. We'll jump to interviews in just a second. What a race it was. And yeah, it would be great to get a word from a couple of drivers. At the moment, we've got Neil Butler coming in first. A double victory for you, Neil. And wow, what a night that was for you, especially with Albin Kjellberg sort of misfortune in that second race there. For your championship, that's big news.
Oh, no, it's great. I mean, it sucks to win like that. I mean, I feel really bad on Albin. I didn't quite see what happened for the retaliation to come, but nobody deserves that, not in a decent league anyway. So I feel bad for him. I think I probably could have got Stuart, but I don't know if I would have been able to catch with Albin, because I think he was doing the same strat as me.
Yeah, well, it was close between the pair of you all evening long, and yeah, you showed some great pace. You were just sort of waiting in the wings for the first half of the race. Was that sort of your game plan, just play it conservative and see what happens?
Well, yeah, the first stint I was saving so much fuel. I think I saved about 4 litres. So that's what gave me the huge jump on Stuart. So I think I was about 4 seconds quicker out the pits, 4 or 5 seconds. So that was how I got through there. But I think Albin was doing the same, to be fair. So I think he would have got it would have been quite a good race to the end. But shame it happens. I mean, sucks for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a titanic championship fight all throughout this season so far between yourself, Albin Kjellberg and Stuart Reynolds. Of course, are you looking forward to how it plays out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it should be good. I don't know how that works for Albin though now, because he's already got quite a low drop score, so I think it gives us quite an advantage. But no, it should be a good fight. I mean, me and Albin have been really close, and Stuart's been right there as well, so it should be a good end of the season. Let's just see what happens.
See what happens. And final question before we let you go, Monza up next. How are you feeling?
It's not a great track for the Porsche, to be fair, because it stinks in a straight line, but we'll work with something. Found something today just in the setup, so yeah, we'll see what happens.
See what happens. That's the best way to be. Do the practice, put the work in, and you might be able to reap the rewards. Well, that was Neil Butler then. Thank you. We wish you the best of luck for next time out. We're going to take a look at Lewis Boubier for the next interview, P1 and P2 over the course of this evening. Lewis, you are on fire over the last couple of rounds. You've finally been able to string a couple of good race twos together. The last couple of races, you haven't really been off the podium. You haven't really been off the pace at all. It's going quite well for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That second race was quite difficult. It's very hard to pass around here, especially in an Audi which doesn't have the straight line speed of say the BMW. So instead of just I guess getting a good result on pace, going as long as I can, I had to involve strategy for once. So managed to get a great undercut on second and third, which got me side by side with the leader when he came out of the pits, my teammate. The problem was we thought we were, or at least I thought we were going to be behind the pros by the time the race finished. So I underfueled the car by a lap. So once I got ahead of Connor, I realised we're not going to get to the end here. So I had to do some heavy fuel saving. Instead of fighting Connor, I let him through. Still a 1-2 for the team, which is good. So a lot of strategy, but yeah, just poor decision making on my hand. It got me the 2 places at least, so not awful in the end, but definitely a good weekend.
In the grand scheme of things, it helps to have those extra 2 places, particularly in the championship. You've obviously had a bit of a wishy-washy season. You've taken 4 wins in race 1, but to kick the season off, you didn't quite get it up to speed in race 2. Suffered a little bit, and that sort of did tarnish your sort of momentum in the championship fight. But now you're getting back into things. Are you aiming for that championship?
I think at this point, yes. Dirk is obviously second, or he might be moving into the lead. I think it'll still be second. Yeah, he's been consistent throughout the season, so I think his drop round is like 79 points. So he's just been consistent throughout, and Connor's had a good few poor races apart from this one over the last couple of weeks. So I've definitely narrowed the difference there. I would say probably within 15 points to 3 of us. So it's going to be very tight for the next few races. So we'll see what happens. Like, keep it clean. There was a few moments this race where it could have ended badly for me, but slowed down when I need to, didn't push too hard, got past when it was open. There's no risk scenario, so that's what I had to go for, and it's just been working out for me recently.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the next few races, we're at Monza next week. Are you looking forward to that? You was talking about how the Audi's not too good on these straights compared to the BMW. Is it going to be more of a damage limitation week for you?
We'll see when we get to the practice, because I thought coming into this week, for instance, all the BOP was reset, so the Audi didn't have the natural advantage not natural advantage, but the advantage it had over the last couple of races. So coming into this weekend, like without the BOP, I thought I was going to do badly, but then practice happens and I was up on the pros pace. I was like, what's happened here? So going into Monza, like, I think without the top end speed, it will be a bit more difficult, but I think there was a chance I can get some good results just through consistency and being safe.
For sure. And we were talking today about how your pace was up there with the pros. I mean, it was very respectful indeed. But hey, that is obviously a good week, good bit of racing for you, and of course for your team as well. So fingers crossed, we'll see you back in the booth next week.
Excellent, thank you. Hope to be here.
Awesome, fingers crossed. Well, that was Lewis Bouvier then, P1 and P2 over the course of his night tonight. We are going to take a chat with the Finn of Juho Huhtinen, and well, we have to say, we were rooting for you after sort of how your season's gone. You were so close to that podium.
Yeah, well, I know. It's a family program, so I cannot say really what I'm thinking at the moment now. But it was so close, but so far still, I got some traffic from the lap cars, and that really affected me. And then Michael has had so much speed from the start on that I couldn't really have an answer on that. And then El Haddad just came flying past on me, and then I think it was Packer who got me on the last lap car situation. So I didn't have any speed on my car after that. But yeah.
I mean, it's a shame, but still a really good result for you. And I mean, it's something. It was so close, definitely sort of in your head. You can be there, you can fight for those places. You showed your pace, and I mean, that's definitely got to spell good things for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I had a one session with Dan for the coaching, and that really helped me. And then I have a second session coming up soon. So maybe on the last few races there is gonna be some surprises, maybe.
we might see you on the top step. Fingers crossed. I mean, we're at Monza next time out. You know, we've spoken to Audis and Porsches, you know, just in the interviews, and they're saying they're not too confident in terms of the straight line speed. Are you confident in your Mercedes?
Yeah, if I find the setup correct, then it's no issue. No issue. I don't really like the track, but it is what it is. Everybody has to drive it. So let's see what happens. I think that Merc is gonna be quite nice there. It's like a tank to drive, so let's see.
Let's see. That seems to be a pretty good attitude for you, and I mean, it works. It worked tonight, but fingers crossed. Hopefully, we'll wish you the best of luck. We'll hopefully see you back in the booth next time out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a nice rest of the evening.
And you. Well, that was Juho Huutonen and the Finn that we were definitely rooting on in terms of the underdog story. This is Stuart Villeneuve, race 1 winner, and went into race 2, still 5th place. A decent evening for you.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Yeah, proud of getting qualifying first and then getting the race win in race 1. I didn't realise I had that lap in me in the qualifying, and then race 2 was just a little bit harder to try to get through the field. A couple of mistakes, a little slowdowns here and there.
Worked out quite well in the end. I mean, you didn't do too bad at all, and you are up there in 3rd place in the championship. Lucas Romano and John Williams, they're sort of doing really well, it must be said. You have to give credit to them, but are you aspiring to try and catch up?
I said before I wasn't really in a championship battle tonight with Kieran from the Truck Scotland, but saying that, if I'm 3rd, I'll try and push on and try and catch the John and Roman. So Lucas and all that.
Well, we do wish you the best of luck with that. I mean, in terms of the upcoming races, how confident are you? I mean, we're at Monza next week. Do you feel all right around there?
I think so, yeah. Last time I was there, I think I did okay. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. I mean, you definitely showed your pace today. You definitely showed what you can do, and you definitely gave Williams a really good fight over the course of race 1. You are one to watch. You're one to give him a bit of a headache, I think.
Hopefully I do, yeah. We're getting back on pace with the car, so hopefully we'll catch them and have a 3-way battle maybe.
Fingers crossed. I mean, the pros and the AMs have both got a 3-way fight for the championship. We need it in the pro AMs as well, so we do wish you the best of luck, and fingers crossed we'll see you back here next week.
Cheers, thank you guys.
Villeneuve, then P1 and P5 over the course of this evening. Well, that is going to wrap up our action. We had 2 brilliant races, 25 minutes and 50 minutes in length. It's been myself, Zach Sweeney, and David Christie alongside me in the commentary booth. I hope you all enjoyed at home. Round number 6 of the IMB World Series GT3 European season number 4. Do stick around a few hours if you can stay awake, or if you are American, you can stick around and watch how your fellow compatriots negotiate the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But if that's not going to be the case, we'll see you in a week's time, same time, 8 p.m. Great British time. And well, fingers crossed, it's going to be an absolute cracker. Monza up next, a prestigious circuit, championship fights, all left to be decided. Round 7 is one to look forward to. But until then, take care. We'll see you soon, and bye-bye.